Bună, eu sunt Ana și bine ați venit pe Asteroidul B 612, planeta celor mai frumoase povești pentru copii. Azi e o zi foarte specială la noi pe planetă, pentru că de astăzi avem două cărți noi absolut minunate de Kobi Yamada de la Editura Katartis, pe care o să vi le arăt imediat. Îl știți deja pe Kobi de la bestsellerurile lui Ce poți face cu o idee și Ce poți face cu o problemă, iar astăzi cele două noi titluri se numesc Încercări și Poate, Maybe and Trying, adică Maybe and Trying. Cam asta este ordinea. Și vreau să vi le arăt în primul rând pentru că sunt la ora actuală printre cele mai frumoase cărți ca obiect pe care le avem în librărie. Sunt scoase în niște ediții foarte speciale cu hârtie de calitate, cu niște culori foarte frumoase, cu supracopertă, după cum vedeți. Puțin să vi le arăt. Coperta adevărat originală, așa. Se vede, la cameră se vede. Încercări este povestea, amândouă sunt niște povești universale, o să vedeți, la care ne putem raporta și pe care le putem simți în suflet, indiferent ce vârstă avem. Încercări este despre cât de greu e să, nu de fapt cât de greu, cât de frumos este să faci un lucru de la zero până la creația finală, în cazul acesteia o sculptură, și cum trebuie să îți depășești, cum fiecare dintre noi trebuie să-și depășească temerile și eșecurile și să credem în ideea noastră. Vedeți că ilustrația este fantastică, aceasta este ilustrată de Elise Hurst, nu vreau să vă arăt foarte mult din ea, dar e vorba despre sculpturi și ilustrația chiar arată ca o sculptură, ca o piatră. Iar Poate, ilustrată de Gabriela Baruch, este o bijuterie de carte, un format foarte mare, cu un vizual absolut impresionant pe care o să vi-l arăt, în care este vorba despre potențialul fiecare dintre noi și despre rolul unic pe care fiecare îl are în lume. E o carte poem absolut minunată, la fel editată în niște condiții impecabile, foarte frumoase, cu supracopertă. Cui mai plac supracopertele? Mie. Așa. Și o să vedeți cum arată, poate fi, se vede acest auriu superb, sper că da, poate fi un cadou absolut minunat pentru copilul din fiecare din noi. Sunt foarte, foarte frumoase și nu o să vă mai povestesc foarte mult despre ele, o să vă las acum în compania lui Kobi Yamada, care ne-a acordat un interviu cu această ocazie. Sunt foarte încântată, bineînțeles, și o să vedeți că am vorbit cu el nu numai despre povestea acestor cărți, și o să aflați cum a ajuns ca fiecare dintre acestea să fie ilustrată de aceste două artiste fantastice. Și pot să vă spun pe acum că încrederea și șansa au avut un rol important în ambele povești. O să vorbim despre procesul lui creativ, despre de unde vin ideile și ce face cu ideile lui și mai ales despre cât de important este felul în care arată o carte, de la grafică în sine, dar până la producția și hârtia și culorile efective. Pentru că o carte este experimentată cu toate simțurile, după cum știți. Textul este una, dar o experimentăm și vizual, și tactil. Uneori și mirosim și pot să vă spun că asta miroase a tipar proaspăt. Vă așteptăm la librărie să le vedeți și voi și să vă minunați, să vă îndrăgostiți de ele, exact așa cum am îndrăgostit și eu. Nici nu știu care îmi place mai mult. Dar până atunci, hai să vedem ce am povestit cu Kobi. Welcome to our little bookshop for the launch of the Romanian editions of Maybe and Trying.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, we are happy too. And the Romanian readers already know you because we have already read your other two books, What Do You Do With an Idea and What Do You Do With a Chance, which have already been translated before. But before we get to the books, my first question for you is how and why did you start writing?
Well, I think that for me, it started with the first book, What Do You Do With an Idea? And I'm lucky enough to work in a really creative company. And I saw some of our designers and people pitching new ideas and thought we could be kinder, gentler with those new concepts and new ideas. And, you know, an idea can be killed off with just an eye roll or a negative comment. And so I went home and the next morning I started writing that book. So that was my first picture book in 2014. Mm-hmm. But what I love about picture books and what I enjoy about writing is that it really it takes a lot to have to simplify something so that you can simplify it so that it's very easy to access. But you know, I think it's done well. It can really expand the conversation too. And I really love the idea that our books can be between people of different generations and different cultures, and having these discussions about things like creativity and potential and failure and things like this, I think that's very important to talk about.
Do you think also it's important to start talking about this ever since like kids are very young, because your books are very somehow maybe abstract a bit like more of an inspiration, and they are very appealing also to, you know, adult readers, let's say, because they make us believe in ourselves. Do you think it's important to start this conversation when?
I personally think it's absolutely important to start the conversation at a young age, and I fully, when I write the books that I do, I know that I'm writing them for all ages. It's not just for young readers, but my hope again is that they spark the conversations that can lead deeper into those subjects. But let's take, for instance, failure or creativity. It's really great that kids are able to see, for instance, if somebody says something negative about their idea, maybe they've already visited this concept in a story before. And so they don't see it as just pure truth, or that they're worthless, or their ideas are worthless, that maybe that's just an opinion, and maybe it's something they can still believe in. So I think, you know, kids are inundated with a lot of negative messaging. And so I think these are like little oases of positivity and self-esteem and things that you want to work on that helps build confidence. You know, courage and confidence and creativity, things like this, they're life skills. They're not just talents. They're not things you're just born with. They're things you practice. They're things that you work with. So I think stories is a great way to deliver that, and a nice way to have access to that, especially as you're being able to introduce it with teachers and parents and grandparents and things like this that can, you know, really overlay their own life experiences with these kinds of things. And so I think that intergenerational conversation is something that's really, really important as young people develop.
Mm-hmm. So this is why you aim to do with the books, just to create a context for us, let's say, like grown-ups, to discuss this with kids. And how do you pick your themes, your topics for the books?
You know, I can't say that there is a specific method to that. I think it's more what I may be experiencing in my life, or things that I'm observing that would just seem like a really fun or interesting way to go about it. For instance, trying the new book there, yeah. I really wanted to have a conversation about failure. Mm-hmm. And really what that looks like. I think a lot of times we think of failure as a very negative thing, something to avoid. And of course you want to avoid it. It's heartbreaking. It's painful. It's not fun to fail. But I think if we really are honest about the arc of failure, it's an important part of us learning and growing and succeeding. And so in that particular case, I thought about that book a lot, but I really thought it was a conversation between two characters. And so the book isn't just really about failure. It's also about mentorship. It's about being there for somebody else, being a guide, being a model for someone in a caring, sympathetic way that can really help to empathize with what a beginner is going through. Because a lot of times we think, I want to be great at this thing, that you look at somebody that has done something masterful and you want to be great right away. And that's really not realistic. You know, it's realistic that you probably will be bad at it at the beginning. And you might even be bad at it for a long time. But it's that perseverance and it's that not giving up is where it really leads to wonderful things. And I think when we spin that around a little bit and don't look at failure as something to avoid, but something that you can embrace and learn from, you're really on a path that really is going to build a lot more resiliency and a lot more of these life skills that we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And I also noticed it has a very nice ending. It's a story about a boy who wants to become a sculptor. And it's really hard. He's trying, and like the older, more experienced sculptor keeps encouraging him. And I love the ending when the boy has already, you know, learned his lesson, and he has become a sculptor as well. Some other kid comes and asks the same questions that the sculptor asked, the boy asked in the beginning. How can I make something so beautiful? And you can see like the whole mentorship wheel, maybe let's say turning. And
yes, really, you picked up on a really, really, I think, an important theme, which is, you know, it's a gift to give your time and attention to another person. And so I wanted to show what that means for someone that didn't have to, but did spend the time and caringly helped another person along. And when you get to that place that you're lucky enough to have had a wonderful teacher it's really important that you give back too, and you pass that along and maybe help another young person in that same way. So you're right. It is a story that almost brings it around full circle.
Yeah, it does. And I think it's also important for kids to understand, like older kids can be mentors for younger kids. This is what I see all the time in the bookshop, and it's really important to teach encouragement from a young age. You know, you can encourage people from a young age as well.
And it's really also important for leadership to know that sometimes you're the student and sometimes you're the teacher, and it doesn't really matter how old you are. You know I learn from my children all the time, and I'm sure you learn from young people, all around you. It's, teachers come in all shapes and sizes. And, sometimes they're teaching us just really about slowing down and being present in the day and learning to play again, so I think there's learning going both ways.
Yeah, that's true. And I noticed that both of these books have little messages for your children in the end, which are like really discreet in the ending, and really, really nice. Not a front page thing, but also like a tiny message. And I think it's really wonderful. Let's also talk about the second title that we have here in the bookshop starting today. Maybe a beautiful, very, very beautiful book. But maybe you can tell us a bit about this, because this is very future oriented, let's say.
I think the idea with maybe is to wonder and to ponder a little bit about what your potential is and what you might do and be in the world. And so purposefully, this is not, the writing is not telling a story. The story is told through the illustrations. And the writing is there really to provoke thought and questions about what things you might do in your life, and the things you might meet, and the things that you might encounter as you go along living a life you love. And so it's really a book about, I like to think of it as a love letter to our potential. Yeah. And that really was where I was when I wrote the book. And, it's gone on to do really amazing, beautiful things. It's an international bestseller. And I like to think that it's a wonderful gift for a newborn. It's a wonderful gift for somebody graduating college. It's really just there to inspire and remind someone that they really have a unlimited, limitless potential. And so it's really, in a lot of ways, we talk about conversations between people, and one of those reasons for different generations having conversations with books. And this book is true there too, but it's also a conversation with yourself. Yeah. And it's a book that you read, and maybe you reread, and it might mean something different to you at a different point in your life. And so that's really the way it was written. And my hope is that when you need it, you pick it up and maybe revisit it.
How important do you think the object part of the book is, like the visual and the feel of the book is?
Well, I think it's very important. So, there's a big difference between something that you would perceive as maybe a textbook or a brochure, and something you would perceive as a gift, and something that would maybe be a keepsake for you. And my hope is that these books grow with people throughout the years, and maybe even get passed down to their children. And so in all those places, somebody is giving something that is meaningful to somebody else. And in my mind, that is where aesthetic and beauty and just the object itself, I think it's important. Is it the whole reason for making the product? No, it's not. I think that, the messaging and what that's about is probably, really at the heart and the kernel of the book. But I think they all are intertwined. It's a little bit like abundance and gratitude are intertwined, right? I think that, beauty and maybe memory and symbolism and things, those are all things that tie together. And so a book is an emotional journey. It's not just a logical one. And so I think that, we want to have things in our lives that remind us of the good parts of life and the beauty of life. And And I do think, a big role that my books play is that they're reminders. And it might be a reminder to someone when they were sharing a special, time reading with mom or dad when they were a young child. And it could be a reminder of someone that, got a wonderful gift from a teacher, or, something they were having a really tough time in their life as a young adult, and they revisited that and reminded them of their potential. So I think we need reminders. The world's got a lot of things in it that can scare us, a lot of things that make you feel powerless, or feel like things don't matter, or people aren't kind to each other. And I think that we need these reminders in our lives too, that they can be hopeful and they can be inspiring. And those are things that our spirit needs just as much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And the emotional impact, as you said, it's really strong with the very beautiful aesthetics of the books. They are very different in terms of visuals. And I wanted to ask you, how do you choose the artist you work for your books, and how involved are you in the actual visual stuff, or do you just let them run free with the imagination?
So I am probably a lot more involved than most authors in the visuals. I usually map it out for the illustrator. I write whole scenes out per page on what I was seeing with the book. Of course, the illustrators are very talented and amazing in their own right, and they don't necessarily illustrate it exactly as I had done. That's just a place for them to touch and to see what I was seeing. And I trust that, I want them to go make the book their own. But we have a lot of dialogue. I've been on so many interviews, and I've talked to different authors, and a lot of them don't talk to the illustrator. It's just like the publisher handles that, and it's separate. And I can't imagine that, because I feel like they are siblings, the visuals and the text. And so it's also one of my greatest joys is being able to dialogue with the illustrator and talk about concepts and work with them and see the book as it's coming along. Just for my own life experience, we're all only here a little while on the planet. It gives me great joy to be able to collaborate with these really wonderful, talented, creative people. So, and I think you can see in the books, these artists are really, really quite accomplished. And it's definitely an honor and a privilege to get to partner with them.
Yeah, it's true. These are indeed works of art, and it's incredible how much the style fits with the story. For example, this one about the sculptures, it's amazing. It looks like actual making something out of stone.
That's a fun story that I just happened upon. I was in Australia because they were making a symphony based on What Do You Do With an Idea? Okay. And I was going through the city of Melbourne, and there was this wonderful little bookstore, and I walked by, and the reason what drew me into the bookstore was somebody in like a white oil pen had done these beautiful illustrations in the window, and I thought, wow. And I walked there, and I went back in because I wanted to find out who that was, and they told me who it was, and they said that she did that as a gift to bookstores, so that the bookstores, people would love it from the street. And I thought, what a great thing. And I ended up contacting her, and I saw that she had done a sculpture in one of her illustrations. And I thought, this is the illustrator for my next book. So I contacted her, and we ended up working on a book, and she's working on my next book right now called Seeing. And it's another mentor book with, but the aspect of being able, two people can look at something and not see the same thing. And also, we don't always accurately see what's inside us either. So that's kind of what the book's about.
So actually, it was serendipity that brought you together. And
complete serendipity. And so, and I really love that, right? If I wasn't out seeing the world and doing something else, we wouldn't have crossed paths. But and if she wouldn't have been generous and had donated her time to the bookstore, I never would have found her. So I love that. All of that means that generosity and being out in the world, these are things that we need to be doing in our lives, and maybe we'll happen upon, something miraculous.
What about the story of Maybe with Gabriela?
So Gabriela is a world-renowned, accomplished illustrator, but she does things more like big clients and packaging and, aquariums. And, she's just, really, really fantastic. But she had never done a book before. Mm-hmm. And so obviously I was in love with her illustrations like everybody else is when I saw what her talent was and her ability. But I reached out to her about doing a book, and I found out she had never done a book before. And I thought, fantastic, we could do our first book together. And then I found out that she had turned down 50 book proposals, that she just said her style and her way that she illustrates, it's so time consuming that it would take her, a year and a half to illustrate a book. And she has all these clients, and, she hasn't found a book that she loved enough to do it. So I was a little deflated. I thought, oh, that's too bad. But at the same time, I didn't really want to give up, because I thought she was the right illustrator for this book. So I asked if I could send the manuscript and talk to her about that. She would be creating the story through the visuals, and we're on different time zones. So she wrote me back, and it was like 2 a.m. I got this message that just said, "This is my book." And so we started on doing that. And the running funny thing is that I said 51 is my new favorite number, because this was the proposal that she accepted. And one of the editors got me a little bronze tag that said 51 on it, just a little number 51. And I showed that to Gabriella, that, 51. And so she put it in the book. So it's for the readers to find. There's the little tag, 51 is in the book. So you'll find it. It's in there, but that's kind of a little hidden gem that's in the book.
Hidden gem. Yes, we love hidden gems. What a beautiful story. Maybe she was inspired by, the message of the book, because she said, okay, maybe that's my potential as well.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. She fell in love with the message, and she felt like she could see it. And Gabriella works in a really interesting visual way, but she basically had the book all around her house in these different things. And that was telling her how she was going to illustrate it. And as the illustrations came to her, she started filling things in and patching things in, and eventually, created a book. But I remember when she talked about how the girl was going to climb inside a book and go inside, and it was going to be dark in there and night. And she did such a beautiful job, because I think one of the central pieces to that is the polar bear spread. It's one of the main reasons why I wrote the book. Is it isn't just about wondering what you'll do, but also wondering what difference you'll make, right? And the kind of impact you're going to have on the world, And it's certainly these days, when you're a young person, there are very big things happening in the world. When you talk about climate change, and you talk about wars, and you talk about all the different ways that we're trying to figure out to be humanity's trying to figure out how are we going to get along together on this beautiful planet, and how are we going to take care of it. And so we want to in ways that can invite readers to find their own potential and to find their own meaning in their life, and which way they're going to go make a difference. But we certainly want to encourage them to make that difference, because every person on this planet, they're unique. And they have a unique contribution to make. And so that's what we wanted to encourage.
Did you also brief her with everything you wanted in the page, or did you let her, like the polar bear spread, you had it already, you knew it already, you wanted to be a polar bear?
No, I briefed her less. Okay. Because Gabriella has this wonderful ability to take real things and intertwine them with the imaginative things, both in scale and that was part of what I needed her to step into. The text, I definitely told her the visual arc and of what we were trying to do with the girl, and her being a maker, and the pig always looking up and wanting to fly, and just these aspects. And but it was all Gabriella with scale and the way that she makes things big and makes things small, and it's just really, really delightful. There's such a gentle fine art quality, but it's also very moving to see the illustrations. Even though there's not a lot of backgrounds and scenes going on, it's very simplified. But I think that actually really brings your focus in on each thing to what she wants to be sharing visually.
It's a big format and it's really impactful to look at. Really wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest book that we've made in the picture books and format, and it just seemed like the simplicity of it needed the expanse of the size too. It just really seemed to fit it, because I think it is a straddling between a picture book and an art book and a gift book.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is, so the messaging, everything is done in a way on purpose to be very brief and very simple. But I think it's a book that can be impactful in a reader's mind and in their universe on how much it can be with their thoughts.
I only have one more question for you, and I know maybe it's going to be a difficult one. It's like making you choose between your kids, but do you have a favorite book from what you wrote?
Oh gosh, yeah, that is a difficult one. I think if I were to, I guess in my own journey, I would probably say that What Do You Do With an Idea has been the most impactful for me, because it was the very first book, and it almost was like my permission to write picture books. So like you have to start somewhere, and it was I had all the same doubts and fears like in the book about I almost didn't publish it. I almost didn't go forward with it because I had never written a book before, never written a picture book. I didn't know if it was any good, all those kinds of things. I knew it was going to be black and white and move to color. That's not very exciting visually for kids, all these things that, and so I think I was able to carry all of my doubts and insecurities and fears as a writer with me into that first book. And I think all the other books, they've benefited by the journey I took with What Do You Do With an Idea? That so I guess there's a sentimental attachment that it was so scary and new to be doing something that maybe I respect that book the most, because it was maybe the most difficult. Yeah,
but in a way it sounds like you wrote about the book as you're writing it, because it's like the journey in the story. So yeah.
Yeah, and I wrote the book fairly quickly, except I look back, I've been interviewed on that book so many times over the years, and I look back and I realized that I used things in the book from years prior, and I think that's one thing to encourage readers and writers out there is your life experiences are part of your story, right? And sometimes they come back and they are more meaningful or more memorable or more foundational than you even realize when you're living them. And so that's something that I in my feeling, it gives me hope, and it gives me just sort of that jolt of energy that and sometimes those are things that are negative too, or you perceived as negative, right? Setbacks or heartbreaks or things like this. You look, if you can know that they're part of your story, and that they're not the end of your story, that sometimes you look back on them and they're actually bright points. They're things that really helped you become the person you are, and sometimes they didn't feel very good at the time. So it isn't just happy, and that's my story. It's sometimes challenges and setbacks and heartbreaks and happy, but all those things kind of help to inform, and really they build empathy for us. They build understanding for others. There are all kinds of wonderful things happen, but it's good to pay attention. It's good to, sort of pull from those things, and also know that maybe some tough times lead to some really good times too.
Thank you so much, Kobi. It was wonderful talking to you, and we hope all the kids in Romania are going to get access to your books and be inspired by them and build their dreams and find their potential. Well,
I want you to know how proud I am to have my books in Romania. So thank you so much for making that possible, and thank you to all the bookstores out there and all the readers, because that's where the magic happens. It's not really with the pictures and the words and the ink on pages. It's what happens in the minds of the reader when they become part of the story. And that's really where I think, the power of the book is.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you so much.
Thank you.